Honey, honey, today we are talking about honey. I was just trying to do a little ABBA thing there, but this is about as ABBA as I get, as in bright and colorful. One of the big questions we get around sugar and what kind of sugars to eat and not eat is honey okay? Most people are very confused about that piece because honey is natural. Like you can literally get something as sweet as any refined sugar in nature in the form of honey. So what actually works in the body? Well, think about how much you would actually consume in nature. That's the consumption concept. If you're ever confused about what it is we're meant to eat, if we're meant to eat it, and how much of what we would eat if we had to source it ourselves in nature, think about where honey comes from. It is guarded by thousands of bees. So in nature, you would have to fight some bears and some bees for that honey. And so it would actually not only mean, one, that you're taking a source of food from the bees and potentially a bigger predator like a bear, but what you're doing is you're having to go into a place of danger to actually get it. So most people who gather honey for a living are very aware of this, and if you have a natural beekeeper in the wild, if they're gathering it, they're very careful. They have a very respectful relationship with the bees, and what you'll find with natural honeys is that they're very expensive, and there's a good reason why. If you think about the thousands and thousands of bees and flowers that it takes to make even a little pot of honey, you start to respect and appreciate that this is a very special food in nature. It's not food designed for humans, it's food designed for bees, and that by taking that, we're actually taking from another species. So that's kind of the mental state that we can start to think about and relate to honey to understand how much would you consume if you had to gather it in a natural environment. So what's happening now is that most of the honey you see on the shelves now is not naturally produced. In fact, many commercial honeys are using high fructose corn syrup. They're adding to that, and they're adding sugar to the honey because it's so expensive to make. And now what's happening is that the bees have actually become endangered. And the reason is many environmental reasons, but one of the reasons is that we have genetically modified organisms that have chemicals that are involved in the process of actually making them. That bees are now going to, and they're getting the pollen from these plants that have a very different profile than they would in nature. And it's actually weakening the bee's immune system. There's another thing that weakens the bee's immune system in that most apiarists, so the beekeepers on large commercial scales, are giving the bees refined sugar to eat. Now, that has a very different makeup than what they would actually get in the nectar from and the pollen from all those different flowers that they would actually be going to for food. So it would be devoid of any nutrients, phytochemicals, and naturally occurring things that would strengthen the bee's immune system. So now we've got the chemicals that come from growing our food with pesticides. We've got a genetically modification in what the bees are actually being exposed to. And then we have that they're actually having this empty food of a sugar syrup, which is weakening their immune system, and literally thousands of colonies are collapsing because of this. There's another factor, a lesser known factor, is that electromagnetic frequencies in the form of EMFs, in the form of what we experience with radio waves and our mobile phones and phone towers, is actually impacting the health of the bees. In fact, it's been shown that if you put a cell phone on a beehive, within a week, the entire colony will be dead. So there's lots of factors that are actually going on, and what this is actually doing is it's compromising the quality of the honey, it's compromising the potential longevity of the species, of which our species, the human species, is very much dependent on the bees surviving because they pollinate all the plants on the planet. Can you imagine if we had to go and hand do that because the bees had disappeared? So coming back to the sweet freedom question about honey and whether it's an acceptable form of sweetener for people who are actually wanting to end sugar addiction. Well, number one, most of the commercial honeys absolutely say no to. And say no to it for environmental reasons, because remember the axiom in Return to Food, if it's good for the planet, it's good for the body, and if it's good for the body, it's good for the planet, without exception. The way we're treating bees and making honey in modern times is not good for the body or the planet. And if you are going to consume a wild or natural honey, an organic honey that hasn't been exposed to genetically modified crops, you want to go with someone who you actually know that they're treating the bees properly, that they're treating the bees respectfully. It's going to be expensive. And so there's two factors that will limit your consumption. The cost. You can't eat loads of honey if it's super expensive unless you're uber wealthy. But even if you are uber wealthy, you want to respect the fact that this is someone else's food and you want to eat it with respect. So how much would you eat in nature if you had to source it yourself? And think about extrapolating that over the period of a year and the work that it's involved. And start to just consume it more mindfully. It's not something we should be eating large amounts of if you are going to eat it all. And remember, there are many natural sweeteners like coconut palm sugar, right, for one, maple syrup, where we're not actually taking away from the bees to sweeten our things. And with all things Sweet Freedom, we want to consume it very mindfully, cautiously, and respectfully of how we would consume it in nature. If you liked the video, please give us a thumbs up and like it. Subscribe to the channel and share it with people you care about that can benefit from this. And join our incredibly supportive Facebook group. And lastly, if you're looking to get sugar-free naturally, follow the links below and find out more about the Sweet Freedom online program.